I want you to understand there is no avoiding some kind of scenario where the left turns to violence because they are not compatible with civil society. They refuse to follow the rule of law. They cannot tolerate a Republican in power, and they cannot tolerate the existence of the Second Amendment. They cannot tolerate a citizen who's armed or educated or even well off. They cannot tolerate someone who can think for themselves, which is why we have this tech censorship escalating at such a rapid pace.
Hello, everybody. First, I want to remind you that all of our videos are designed to not get outdated, even though some of the news headlines we talk about may be. The message is just as current as when it was made, and they have a fresh Christian perspective I guarantee you are not getting. I've checked. So, please check out the link in the description to watch them all. We have a special documentary coming in the next few videos that you won't want to miss in small, approximate 20-minute bites of the signs to watch for and alert others to of coming socialism by Glenn Beck. It's hair-raising, but first, a little commentary by yours truly, then some other footage by Mike Adams that is a must-hear because, according to him, and I agree, it's about go time. You'll see what I mean. Many countries, including many in the U.S., have jumped on this inclusion bandwagon, meaning they supposedly want everyone to be included in their tolerance religion. They pound in our heads that this religion of theirs is against divisiveness, but what if we asked them to include the values of Christianity in their tolerance and inclusion system? Would they continue with their inclusion and non-divisiveness when you have to express you are not for any type of sexual immorality or that life is a fundamental value of yours, or will they turn hypocritical? Will they call you hateful names like a bigot because you do not toe their party line and bow or subscribe to their pseudo-value system? Okay, first matter at hand, and this is very important because many people are still on the fence with this immigration issue we're facing in America. Even though we are well over capacity of what we can sustain as a nation and it's declared a national emergency, many Americans still don't get it. They have no guidance from their churches that are supposed to be a light to lead them in the right direction. We know we get no guidance from the lying media. But it's not happening in the churches either. They teach milk and entertainment and not meat. Even when the house is on fire, they give a regular sermon message because they have no vision. For those of you who think God is on the side of these invaders, which is lawlessness, he calls iniquity, because at least 90% of them do not qualify for asylum, but are here to plunder a sovereign nation. For those of you still undecided, you can see how God reacts to such people in the Gog and Magog account in Ezekiel 39 and Revelation 20. He sends fire down upon them. These people, most of them, have voted in socialism in their own countries, remember, and are lawless in other ways. Now they should deal with it. Because if they stood up to their own government and demanded change and turned to a biblical worldview, they could have what we have in America. Do you realize that? It's actually an insult to God, in my opinion, that they all think they have to come here to the USA and cram everybody here on one piece of land for prosperity when God could do it anywhere. Tell me what you think. But it's evident the demagogues are behind it, treasonous traitors, of which are some now being found out by this new investigation, but it goes much deeper, that you can learn by watching all our videos in the link below. What would be one of the worst, if not the worst, demagoguery you can imagine? Would it not be if we the people could not even legitimately vote into office whom we choose because of voter fraud? This is what I mean about unprecedented demagoguery that is related to the word Magog. The word Magog is right in the word demagogue that is happening now. And how is it that these immigrants have so much courage in them to fight the Mexican and American governments, but run like cowards from their own governments? Could it be because they are being coached by these demagogues and their lawyers? That's what many are claiming. To you people still on the fence, or worse yet, on the wrong side, these people are lawless invaders, and many are hardened criminals coming to plunder, and the demagogues enticing them to come here and vote and ruin our Christian republic with an invasion are no better. You better wake up and get on the right side before it's too late. I understand that some of them are actually would qualify for asylum, but it's a very small percentage. And what they're doing to our country, coming here and just expecting us to support them, is not right. And I believe is not. I know is not right in the eyes of God. Next matter. Many people think the war we are fighting here in America is just partisanship. In other words, it's just Democrats versus Republican. But in reality, and you won't hear this on TV, it is not. This fight is against Christianity, or as Revelation 28 says, these pagan nations, surround the camp of the saints in the beloved city. I can show you this fight is not against what Christians would call pagan religions. It's apparent because Christianity is the only paradigm, religion, ideology, whatever you want to call it, that really rubs these so-called deep staters that I call the disciples of the dragon, really rubs them the wrong way. For example, if you stand up for life, you are attacked by them. If you stand up for sexual immorality, you're attacked and labeled. If you stand up for a sovereign state, which the Bible does teach boundaries and does teach individual ownership, we call capitalism, but you are labeled, and I don't think I have to tell you what those labels are. They pound their religion in our heads daily. They don't like to call it a religion, but whether you call it a paradigm of thought, an ideology, or whatever, it's all the same. Don't fall for it. Well, enough said for now on this. Please indicate whether you liked or did not like it and tell us why. Subscribe and share. The following is sure to put you on the edge of your seat and should convince a big change is coming. God bless.
This is Mike Adams here with an emergency counterthink update. Thank you for joining me. President Trump is reportedly about to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807, which allows any president to deploy the National Guard and the United States military to stop an uprising that threatens the United States government. I'm one among many in the independent media who have called for President Trump to invoke this act. It was passed by Congress in 1807. It has been used before by other presidents. Well, Trump is about to use it in defense of our nation. And in this emergency broadcast, I'm going to give you my analysis of what I think this means for America. Hint, it's good news. President Trump is defending this nation against a war that has already begun. I'm also going to give you some information about what I think may be coming and what you need to do to prepare yourself for that, especially those of you who are in California. Now, over a year ago, in an interview with Dave Hodges of thecommonsenseshow.com, I talked about how California would be the front lines and the battleground of the new Civil War for America. We're now starting to see how that Civil War will shape up. Understand, and with this disclaimer, that I don't have any direct lines to President Trump or the White House or anyone in his administration. This is my own independent analysis, and you may not agree with it, may not be 100% correct. But I do have other inside sources, and I think I've got a pretty good grasp on what's coming. So here's my analysis, and you can take it or leave it as you wish. Trump realizes that there are elements within the United States that are, in fact, engaged in an escalation of a war to try to assassinate President Trump or depose him, remove him from office, for example, under the 25th Amendment, and that deep state elements inside America have been waging a political coup for about 3 years now, and that coup failed. It has now been exposed, and with William Barr as the Attorney General, there are individuals within the deep state who are likely to face indictments, prosecution, and imprisonment. And those individuals are likely to include James Comey, John Brennan, Andrew McCabe, perhaps even Loretta Lynch, Peter Strzok, and many others. Ultimately, it goes up to Barack Obama, by the way, but it seems unlikely that he would face prosecution, although technically it is possible to impeach a president after he is out of office, although I'm not predicting that that will happen in this case. President Trump realizes that the Democrats have decided that they wish to destroy America, and that they are taking steps to actively destroy America from within. Democrats have committed to lawlessness. They've abandoned the rule of law. They've abandoned any semblance of protecting the borders. The Democrats are attempting to lie through the media, to misinform the American public. They function as hate machines that are pushing hatred and ignorance among their followers who are wildly uninformed. They actually believe the Russians stole the election, which is completely absurd. It's a fiction that's been pushed by people like Rachel Maddow for the last couple of years. And so these leftists are poised to launch an active civil war. They just need to be pushed over the edge by the left-wing media just a little bit more. Well, I think that with this Insurrection Act invocation by President Trump, I think that the left will declare that to be Trump's dictatorship or something, and they will use that to launch attempted Antifa attacks, the bombing of government buildings, for example, mass terrorism from the left, the attempted murder of Trump supporters, Christians, and white people who will be attacked based on the color of their skin. The left wants to see America overrun, invaded through illegal immigration, then overrun, and then toppled from its constitutional republic structure into an authoritarian regime run by left-wing fascists. What the tech giants on the left have already been doing over the past year with extreme censorship of all conservative voices, Christian voices, pro-Trump voices, and so on, this is, in fact, the early rollout of the authoritarian dictatorial regime that the left wants to put into place. They've already begun the rollout. Now, what hasn't been reported in the media, but what has been reported by people like Dave Hodges, is that the California bureaucracy has been almost entirely taken over by communist China. California's media is now owned, including the Los Angeles Times, is owned by a communist Chinese biotech billionaire who has, of course, strong ties to the biotech industry, big pharma, the sick care industry, and the vaccine industry. California is now essentially occupied and run by communist China. And the leaders of California, if you can even call them that, like Newsom and Jerry Brown before him, and the mayors of various cities in California on the left coast, they are in fact obedient puppets of communist China. And as Dave Hodges has reported, the goal of these people is to allow communist China to have a beachhead in California, starting with the Los Angeles port, where China can actually start a land invasion and occupation of the United States through California. And the leaders of California have been promised prominent positions in the communist Chinese regime that intends to take over the United States of America and topple our constitutional republic, seek out and essentially assassinate all patriots and all Trump supporters and so on. This is their plan. I'm not saying that they're going to succeed with this, but this is what they believe. And they are willing to do anything to make this happen. Understand that people like Gavin Newsom absolutely despise the United States of America. The mayor of San Francisco, the mayor of Oakland, the mayor of San Diego, the mayor of Los Angeles, and so on, these people despise America. And they have declared their state to be a sanctuary state, which means they are declaring that they can overrun the United States by allowing illegals to sweep into California, and then they can twist the United States census to give more of a so-called population to California, where California gets more members in the House of Representatives so that they can outvote real Americans everywhere else in the country. This is happening as California is giving these illegals the right to vote, which they have not earned. They are not citizens. They violated the law by sneaking into the country, skipping the line that other legal immigrants have been taking, and engaging in lawlessness. And then California is confiscating money from American taxpayers to pay benefits, entitlements, free schooling, free food, free all kinds of benefits to these illegals while giving them the right to vote. Now, what this means is that California's electoral college votes must be nullified by President Trump in the upcoming 2020 election, because California will not abide by rules, federal rules for elections. California is actively allowing illegals to vote in all elections, this means that California's electoral votes must be null and void. In addition, California's 2 senators must also be barred from entering the United States Senate. Now, and of course, California's members of Congress who were fraudulently elected through ballot harvesting in this most recent 2018 midterm election, they must also be rejected and those elections reversed. Now, how do you get this done if you're a president of a constitutional republic? How do you get this done? The answer is you invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807, and you declare the governor of California to be an enemy combatant who is actively attempting to overthrow the United States of America, which is exactly what he is doing. I'm not saying that this is what Trump is going to do. I don't know. I can't read his mind. I don't know what he's planning on doing. He may never invoke that power. He's been very restrained, in fact, in invoking powers recently, well, through his entire term. But he could invoke this, and I believe he should. I believe that President Trump should arrest the governor of California and the mayors of every city in California that has declared itself a sanctuary city, if the mayor has approved that status, which almost universally they have. The city council members that voted in favor of sanctuary status should also be indicted and arrested and charged with acts of sedition against the United States of America. The illegals who walked into California under these illegal protections should be, of course, deported. Now, this can be done in a humanitarian way by providing them, food and water and assistance to get back home where they belong. And you could even invite them to apply to re-enter the United States, and they may be accepted for that application. We do want good people who have skills. We do want good people who wish to participate in this constitutional republic, people who abide by the laws, people who pay taxes and contribute to society in other ways, people who bring skilled labor and other skills into the country. For example, my wife is a legal immigrant, and we work with lots of immigrants, and we have over many, many years, and we welcome immigrants who follow the law. You have to abide by the rules. We reject illegal immigrants. We do not hire illegal immigrants, and we do not want illegal immigrants to be taking jobs away from Americans and legal immigrants, who both of which deserve those jobs. So Trump will have the power under the Insurrection Act to invoke the National Guard and the United States military to seek out arrests and prosecutions of those who are actively attempting to rise up and overthrow the United States government. And in my view, in my analysis, that includes the governor of California and the mayors of those cities in California. And it may include mayors of other sanctuary cities in other states, including Texas, by the way, and Arizona and Oregon, Washington, and elsewhere, Colorado, New York, you name it. Now, when this happens, here's what's important to understand. The minute Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, the deranged lunatic left will, of course, declare that there is a military dictatorship in play. This will cause them to take to the streets, and they will attempt to cause mass chaos, and they may attempt their communist revolution. Now, you've probably seen some of these leftists running around with AK-47s. The good news is they almost have no knowledge of how to operate AK-47s or clear a jam or reload them or anything like that. Their skills are extremely limited. So I'm putting out an alert today, a cautionary alert to all the patriots of America, all members of Oath Keepers, for example, who are really strong, courageous, upstanding men and women who love their country, and all Second Amendment supporters and gun owners, especially in California. I want you to be prepared for what may be coming. It's important that we abide by the rule of law. It's important that none of us initiate any kind of violence. That would be against our principles. But it's also important that we stand ready to defend the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic. It's important that we stand ready to defend our president and to defend his right to root out anti-American forces that are actively trying to bring down this nation from within. It is, in fact, the duty of the president to root out those who are committing treason inside, or maybe you call it sedition. I call it treason because I believe we are in a state of war, even though it has not yet been declared by Congress. But it is, by any reasonable means, it is treason what these people are committing in California by protecting illegal aliens and trying to overthrow the rule of law in America. There are efforts nationwide to try to overthrow the Electoral College. There are efforts to try to take away Second Amendment rights, and there are efforts every day among the tech giants in California to try to take away the First Amendment rights of Americans, and they have successfully done that at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, and so on, which is why I've also called for the military police arrest and indictment of the CEOs of Twitter, and Facebook, Google, YouTube, Snapchat, Pinterest, and other tech platforms that have selectively silenced conservative, pro-Trump, pro-Christian voices. And this is, I believe, what Trump really understands. He understands that the Democrats in America have essentially declared that they will no longer accept the outcome of any election that they do not win. Democrats have declared they refuse to coexist with civil society. They refuse to abide by the rules, the laws. I mean, the very idea of a sanctuary city is to say that they are going to flout the laws and protect violent criminal illegals. They are protecting murderers and rapists and other forms of violent criminals in California and other places. This must stop. And again, we are blessed that in our lifetime, we have someone like President Trump, who is willing to stand up against all the enemies of America, both foreign and domestic, and to invoke the powers that are intrinsic to the executive branch of the federal government to root out those enemies, stop them, and really remove them from power, which is what has to be done. The upshot of all of this is that the left will likely try to push America into a civil war. Now, I publish a website, civilwar.news. You may have read it. I also publish trump.news. And there we discuss some of the scenarios of a civil war and how to prepare yourself against that possibility. It's important to understand that the left has no regard for human life. They don't care if they kill you. They don't care about carrying out violence. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself, why are they passing all of these infanticide laws that allow them to kill their own children? Ask yourself this question: if these people are willing to kill their own babies after they're born, which is what Democrats want to do now nationwide, New York, Vermont, Connecticut, Virginia, California, you name it, they are marching in favor of mass murdering their own babies. Do you think those people would hesitate for a second to kill someone that they hated, like a Trump supporter? You think they would hesitate to kill you? You think they would hesitate to kill a person just based on the color of their skin? They've talked about how they hate people for being born white. In fact, they hate babies for being born at all. These are sick, demented, even demonic, anti-human, anti-American creatures, these Democrats, these leftists, these Antifa members. You almost can't even really call them human because they've lost that circuitry that makes someone human. That empathy, that compassion, that human heart, that consciousness, and the respect for the dignity of the lives of others, all of that's gone in these people. They are lunatics, they're zombies, they are murderous, they're filled with rage and hatred thanks to the hate indoctrination of the left-wing media. And they are looking for a trigger event to unleash their hatred and violence across America. You must be ready to defend your life, your family, your community, and your nation against that uprising of hatred and violence and lawlessness that the left will unleash. And Trump is very smart to recognize that this is exactly what's coming. He's well informed, and he has already outsmarted everybody in the deep state. He outsmarted the Republican establishment, and he outsmarted the Democrat establishment. He outsmarted the media and the deep state as well. Again, we're blessed to have this man as our president. I believe he may go down in history as the greatest president in the history of our country since George Washington, because Trump will be saving America again from the greatest threat that this country has experienced since its founding. This is the greatest threat, but Trump needs your help. to make this happen. And again, I don't believe that Trump wants anybody to activate in any way except to defend the rule of law. Trump wants us to, I think he wants our help to defend our borders, perhaps to help support federal National Guard troops if they go out to arrest the traitors in California. It's possible that our National Guard troops might be, of course, resisted by local Antifa groups, and there could be kinetic conflict there. In that case, I believe it would be the law-abiding duty and right of every American in California to help support and defend the National Guard troops who are attempting to simply apply the law and stop the lawlessness and stop the treason in California. That's my analysis. It's up to you to decide what to do. But I believe that would be the right thing to do in those circumstances. But here's another scenario to consider. The governor of California may order the California branch of the National Guard to resist orders from Trump, to defy Trump. And in response to that, in fact, I believe that's exactly what Newsom would do. In response to that, Trump might theoretically order National Guard troops or military troops from other states or from the Pentagon to, let's say, fix that situation in California and eliminate the leadership who are engaged in treason in the California branch of the National Guard, and make sure that those troops in California are serving the interests of the Republic rather than the interests of Communist China, which is running Newsom. So we could see an escalation of kinetic conflict, even between guardsmen and women as well, and the United States military. Now, we hope it never goes to that. We don't want to see that kind of escalation. But Trump is correct if he were to say that we cannot tolerate the governor of California carrying out acts of sedition, insurrection, and treason against the United States of America. That must be stopped. And ultimately, the only way that a federal government can stop that activity is to do so through essentially coercion, and through the lawful application of a military presence. You might think, well, wait a minute, what about posse comitatus? You can't have the United States military functioning as police on U.S. soil. Well, that is true if you're talking about a domestic policing role. The military cannot engage in a domestic policing role. The military is fully authorized, however, and there's plenty of Supreme Court precedent to support this, to seek out and eliminate treasonous enemies of America who happen to be on U.S. soil. The military does have that power, and their commander-in-chief is none other than Donald J. Trump. And I think that there are millions of men and women in the military who are looking forward to defending this nation against domestic enemies, including those in California. Again, the leadership, not the people of California, but the corrupt, communist China-run leadership of California. Now, what I know is that California is filled with good people. I know that even many people I know who live on the West Coast, who live in very liberal cities and towns, they are patriots at heart, and they have to be silent about their support for Trump. Otherwise, they would be really threatened, intimidated, run out of town, because California has become a radical left-wing authoritarian regime. I also know that outside the very narrow west coast of California, most of rural California, and especially Northern California, has many, many people who are patriots, people who have been exercising the Second Amendment rights, people who bought 100 full capacity magazines when standard capacity magazines were legalized for that 1 week. Was that a couple of months ago? I think California citizens purchased over 1 million magazines, and they've been hiding them ever since. Why do you suppose they did that? It's because the people of California know what's coming, and they want to be ready to defend their nation against the civil war that they see forming. They know that their leaders in California are traitors. They know that California has been overrun by the communist Chinese. They know that the day is going to come when we, the people, with the support and direction of our commander-in-chief, take our country back from those who seek to destroy it. That day is nearly here, my friends. Trump is about to invoke the Insurrection Act. Be ready. That's my message. Be ready, because it's coming. Again, final disclaimer, follow the law, help keep the peace, help support our troops, support our commander-in-chief. Be ready, be prepared, but do not initiate any form of violence. This is not a vigilante justice scenario that anybody wants to see. But at the same time, if they come for you, be ready to put them down. If Antifa comes to your door, they want to drag you out of your car or drag you out of your home and cut your head off with a machete, which is what they like to do, or beat you to death with a spiked baseball bat. You need to make use of those standard capacity magazines that you have acquired. And you need to do so with proficiency and with a sense of, frankly, duty to defending your country against those who seek to destroy it. So be ready. The day is coming. We will only have this one last chance to defend America. If the anti-American forces manage to get Trump out of the White House in the 2020 election, for example, which they can only win by stealing it, then they will, at that point, they will completely gut the Constitution. They will attempt to confiscate all firearms. This has already been promised by people like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and others who are running for president, Pocahontas as well. They are promising to confiscate firearms. Now, in that scenario, should that occur, they would be facing, by recent projections, at least 650,000 armed American insurgents, i.e., defenders of the American Republic, who would fight against an illegitimate authoritarian regime that attempts to take away the Second Amendment from the American people. So I want you to understand, there is no avoiding some kind of scenario where the left turns to violence because they are not compatible with civil society. They refuse to follow the rule of law. They cannot tolerate a Republican in power, and they cannot tolerate the existence of the Second Amendment. They cannot tolerate a citizen who is armed or educated or even well off. They cannot tolerate someone who can think for themselves, which is why we have this tech censorship escalating at such a rapid pace. You know what? On that note, by the way, President Trump, under the Insurrection Act, he could theoretically, I'm not saying he's going to do this, but he should. He could theoretically deploy military police to occupy and seize control over Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter, and others. He could do that. The simple matter, really, all you have to do is honestly declare that those social media platforms are actively engaged in insurrection against the United States of America. They are engaged in election meddling, election fraud, by selectively censoring voices that are pro-Trump. Those organizations are fraudulent, and they are, in my opinion, engaged in racketeering crimes and widespread fraud, as well as violations of basic human dignity, the right to speak. They do need to be taken down by the military police and by the president, in my view. I've called for that before. The Insurrection Act theoretically gives President Trump the power to do that. If he chooses to do that, and I don't know if he will, probably won't, but we'll see, then he needs the support of you, especially you in California. So again, it all comes back to this very simple point. I want you to be ready. I want you to be prepared for what's happening, and we need your support to make this happen. And let me answer this one. I can sense there will be some criticism from some people who say, well, you don't want the military to be raiding corporations. You don't want the military to arrest governors. You don't want the power of government to be wielded as a weapon against the people of California. Well, that's not what's happening. In fact, we have this unique window of opportunity where President Trump has been handed control over the executive branch of government through fair and free elections. The American people put Trump there in the White House specifically to have someone there who would take decisive action to defy the enemies of America. Remember, drain the swamp, lock her up, build the wall. Trump ran on that, and he was elected on that. The American people will support Trump and Trump's use of the power of government to halt those who are committing acts of sedition and treason, even if they're doing so on U.S. soil. And it doesn't matter if you're the governor of California, you don't get to commit treason and get away with it. It doesn't matter if you're the mayor of a California city, you don't get to be complicit in aiding and abetting criminal felons who happen to be illegals. Why is their violence and murder and rape suddenly protected because they happen to have illegal status? That's all the more reason to root them out and boot them out. They should be out of America. That's all that Trump is trying to do. Trump is using the power that the American people gave him to help save America from those who are the enemies of America. And those enemies include the left-wing media, the tech giants and their incredible bias, and some governors and some mayors, and a lot of domestic terrorists who want to overthrow this republic and install their own, communist authoritarian regime. Trump has a duty and obligation to stop those people, and we have a duty and an obligation to support Trump in that role. There will be difficult times ahead. I have no illusions. But these are necessary steps to defend and protect America, root out those who are destroying America, and finally set this nation on the right path. Once again, where the elections are determined by the American voters, not the illegal voters. Where the American people have the right to speak, the right to exercise freedom of religion, the right to keep and bear arms. These are basic fundamental rights that Trump is fighting for. And if Trump needs to invoke the powers that Congress has already previously authorized for the executive branch of government, then so be it. Trump should use every power that he has been handed by Congress or by the American people. In fact, Trump should invoke every executive order that Obama had written and put on the books, which, by the way, gives Trump a whole lot of power to invoke national emergencies and to have military police arrest the traitors and those carrying out treason inside the United States border. So if you are not willing to defend your country, then you're not an American, because America was founded by people in the spirit of self-governance, in the spirit of the rule of law and due process, and to say that people like Hillary Clinton shouldn't be excused from prosecution just because she's a special elitist. We live in a nation where it's supposed to be illegal for Obama to authorize the deep state to use surveillance powers and spying powers to illegally infiltrate and spy on a presidential campaign that represents the political enemies of Barack Obama. They used Stasi-type tactics. This is worse than what the KGB did in Russia in the Cold War, in the Soviet Union. Obama needs to be held accountable. All these people who committed these crimes need to be held accountable. And there is only one man that I can think of that has the courage to call for this, to call for holding these people accountable. And that man is Donald J. Trump. You might say, well, William Barr seems to be willing to pursue that as well. So far, it seems so, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm at the point after Jeff Sessions pulling a Benedict Arnold. I don't trust anybody until they prove themselves, except Donald Trump. I trust Donald Trump because he has the best interests of America at heart, and Donald Trump needs our support. So I want to say, here's a final message, and I'll wrap this up, to those who may have contact with President Trump. If I were sitting in the Oval Office with you in person, here's what I would say to you. President Trump, we the people absolutely support your effort. We demand that all of us follow the rule of law, and we support your effort to root out, to arrest and indict those who are committing treason and sedition in the United States. We support your effort to root out and boot out those who entered the country illegally and have been stealing our elections with illegal votes. We support your effort to build the wall, to drain the swamp, to lock them up. And we, the people, will defend any effort that you make to do what's right for America. We will defend you and your executive orders. We will defend you county by county, city by city, block by block. We will defend you from our homes, from our communities. We will defend you from our online platforms. We will defend you and support you all the way to get this done. Let's take America back. Let's make America great again. And let's protect this constitutional republic for generations to come. It's time. It's not going to be an easy path, but it is a necessary path. And let's restore the rule of law so that there are no more people out there who get immunity just because they have political power. That goes for everyone, including President Trump. President Trump must act in accordance with the law. He cannot violate the law, and he has no intention of doing so. He has every intention of invoking the laws that are on the books and invoking the executive powers that have already been proven, president after president. Donald Trump can get this done through the rule of law with the support of we the people. And as a final note, we the people, because we exercise the right to keep and bear arms, but also because we're law-abiding citizens, and I always encourage people, follow the law. If you carry a firearm, get permission to do so. Don't have illegal firearms, anything like that. Always follow the law, as I do. We all have the gear, the equipment, the proficiency, the training to assist in whatever way is needed to defend this country from its enemies. We, the American people, we could repel a foreign invasion of a military force. If the Chinese unleashed a communist army on a beachhead in Los Angeles with the support of Gavin Newsom, which is not that outlandish of a scenario, we, the people, could fight them back, and we could push them out of California, and we could protect our borders. We have an incredible military. We have incredibly dedicated men and women throughout law enforcement, sheriff's departments nationwide, National Guard. But we also have incredibly dedicated citizens and civilians, over 100 million across this nation who are firearms proficient and have been purchasing rifles like never before, and have been purchasing magazines, and have been purchasing ammunition, and have been going to training classes, and have been getting proficient. I know this because, of course, I'm one of them, and I meet many of these other people in firearms competitions or sometimes training or gun ranges and so on and so forth. And I'm really impressed by all these people and their dedication to defending the rule of law in America. These people will follow you, President Trump. They will follow you. They will follow their commander-in-chief, and they will defend this nation, and they are ready for America to assert its sovereignty once again. And I think there are tens of millions of Americans who share that sentiment right now, perhaps 100 million or more. So that's my message. Whatever needs to be done to defend this nation, it's time to do it. We the people will support it. Thank you for watching. My name is Mike Adams, counterthink.com. You can read my websites at newstarget.com and naturalnews.com. And in addition to being a pro-Second Amendment patriot, just as a side note, I am a published food scientist, and I do analytical food science on pesticide quantitation of foods. So I actually run a lab. That's what I do full-time now, almost full-time. I run a lab. So in addition to political commentary, I'm a scientist, I'm a published author in a chromatography journal, I'm a patent holder I have a patent on an invention that can remove radioactive cesium isotopes from the human body through a dietary supplement. And I'm the author of a #1 best-selling science book on Amazon.com called Food Forensics. I'm launching a new show soon called Food Forensics, where we will be analyzing foods and what's in them and giving you advice on what's safe versus what may be contaminated. And I don't want to focus on politics long term. I just want my country back. If I can help get our country back, I'm just going to be a food scientist. That's my goal and my dream. That's all I really want to do. But if we have to fight for this country, to defend it, to defend our democracy, our republic, then that's a path we have to go through to earn the right to live in peacetime and to live in a fair and free society once again.